Hello, everyone. We are Team 2. I'm Tanya, and today we are diving into CSR, Corporate Social Responsibility, through the lens of Polanski and Javon's paper. At first glance, CSR seems simple. Companies say they care about community, the environment, and customers, and everyone's benefits. But when you look at how global brands actually do this, it's messy. The authors argue that for CSR to be strategic, companies need to manage three kinds of complexity: issue complexity, deciding which issue really matters; organizational complexity, making sure all divisions and brands are aligned; and communication complexity, telling the CSR story in a way that is consistent and believable. And unless companies deal with all three at once, their CSR risk becoming scattered and vulnerable to criticism. First, issue complexity. Global brands face an endless list of possible CSR issues: sustainability, human rights, wages, nutrition, diversity, community development. The problem is, which one should they prioritize? And the answer often depends on who you ask. The paper identified four sub issues here: identification, heterogeneity, measurement, interpretation. Identification: what issue even matters? Take Nestle. They have CSR commitments around water use, coffee pricing, child nutrition, and more. But they've also faced boycotts for unethical infant formula marketing and over extraction of water. So, even if you identify many issues, some stakeholders remain unconvinced. Heterogeneity: different regions care about different things. For example, Pakistan's soccer ball industry faces global backlash for child labor. The government enforced strict labor law, but many manufacturers shut down instead, costing families income. A CSR solution in one place can have very different outcomes locally. Measurement. This means, how do we track responsibility? Companies often relied on audits or GRI reports, but the metrics don't always capture the live reality of workers or communities. Interpretation. This means, who decides what's enough? Regulators, NGOs, or consumers? For instance, Nike once met local minimum wage laws in Asia, but Western consumers still saw it as unacceptable. Showing interpretation matters as much as measurements. So, issue complexity reminds us CSR isn't one size fits all, it's constantly negotiated. Second, organizational complexity. Even when companies pick the right issue, the challenge is spreading responsibility across a massive organization. The sub issues are: overall corporate brand, the company is judged as a whole. Take Altria. Philip Morris tried to distance itself from tobacco's negative image by rebranding as Altria, but the tobacco stigma overshadowed its other businesses, like Kraft Food. The corporate brand took the hit. Multiple products and brands. One weak link can taint all. A company with many brands has to ensure none are out of sync. Otherwise, one controversy can spill over to the parent. functional alignment. HR, marketing, operational all need to pull in the same direction. If marketing claims we are green, but operations still produce waste, the message collapses. Supply chain. Global sourcing make it even harder. Think of Nike. They face global outrage over sweatshops. Even when they argue the local factories met legal standards, weak links in the supply chain can damage the entire brand. So, organizational complexity is about keeping the whole system consistent. And that's incredibly difficult for multinationals. And finally, communication complexity. Even if you identified the right issue and align internally, you still need to communicate your CSR. And this is where brands can win or lose. The sub issues are intensity of action. Is CSR bold or and visible or small scale? For example, Toyota launched the Prius under the main brand, not a niche eco brand. That bold choice make it a symbol of green driving worldwide. Positioning. Is CSR central to the brand or just projects? Toyota succeed because Prius felt core to their identity. By contrast, Johnson& and Johnson donate over 50 millions in 2006, but didn't tie it back to their brand story, leaving reputational value on the table. Communication action. Are results shared openly? Shell, after criticisms in Nigeria over oil spills and human rights, started publishing plain language CSR reports that admit both wins and failures. That transparency was meant to rebuild trust. Integration. Are CSR message consistent everywhere? If a car company promotes eco-friendly models while still heavily marketing SUVs, the mixed signals erode credibility. So communication complexity is a balance act. Oversell and risk being called greenwashers. Undersell and you lose recognition. The sweet spot is consistency and credibility.
Now, let's shift from the theory to our case study Tim Hortons. Most of us think of Tim's as a Canadian icon coffee, Timbits, and hockey arenas. But what's important for this case is that Tim Hortons is no longer just Canadian. Under its parent company, Restaurant Brands International (RBI), it has expanded to more than 5,700 stores in Canada, the US, the Middle East, India, Pakistan, and even moving into Africa. This global spread makes Tim Hortons a perfect brand to test Polanski and Javin's framework. Because CSR looks very different in Toronto compared to Dubai or Karachi. What customers, regulators, or NGOs expect in one market can be irrelevant in another. So, in the next slides, we'll walk through Tim Hortons' issue complexity, organizational complexity, and communication complexity and see how the paper's findings apply in practice. Let's start with issue complexity, which is deciding what counts as CSR for Tim Hortons. Tim's frames its CSR strategy around three pillars: food, planet, people, and communities. On food, the big focus is coffee. They partner with Enveritas, a nonprofit that audits 100% of their green coffee purchases to check for issues like child labor, low wages, and poor environmental practices. On Planet, they have piloted plastic free fiber lids, paper straws, and wooden cutlery in Canada. They've also redesigned wrappers to cut paper use by 75%. On communities, the results are very visible. In 2024, the Smile Cookie campaign raised almost $20 million, while Camp Day raised another $12 million to fund youth camps. But here's the complexity. In Canada, recyclable fiber lids are celebrated as innovation. In Pakistan, when Tim's launched, the public conversation was all about price and prestige. Nobody cared about packaging waste. In the Middle East, halal quality is the dominant CSR concern. In the US, the issue is recycling infrastructure. A cup that's probably recyclable in New York might just be a landfill in Florida. So the same brand faces very different stakeholder expectations depending on the country. That's issue complexity in action. Next is organizational complexity, which is keeping CSR consistent across thousands of stores and suppliers. There are a few challenges here. Global sourcing. All coffee is audited by Enviritas, but Tim Hortons does not share outcome data. We don't know how many farms pass or what happens when violations are found. That lack of visibility creates uncertainty. Corporate standards versus local rollout. RBI, the parent company, pledged all packaging will be 100% PFAS free by 2025. And today, they're already at 97%. That's a strong global target. But actual rollouts differ. Fiber lids are still limited to a few Canadian cities. Meanwhile, in India, Pakistan, or the Gulf, there is almost no evidence of these packaging pilots yet. The other challenge is franchise model. Tim Hortons runs on thousands of franchises. In Toronto, you might get paper straws. In Dubai or Karachi, you might still see plastic. The local franchisees' adoption speed directly affects whether the CSR strategy feels real or it's just corporate PR. So, organizational complexity for Tim Hortons is about this uneven rollout. Global promises at the head office, but patchy results are still on the ground. Finally, let's look at communication complexity. How CSR is presented to the public. This is where Tim Hortons has both big wins and serious risks. On the positive side, community programs like Smile Cookie and Camp Day are communication gold. They publish exactly how much money was raised and where it goes. It's transparent, easy to understand, and creates emotional connection. But on packaging, the story is messier. Tim's advertises that its cups and lids are recyclable. But what's the reality? Canada's recycling rate for plastics is only around 9%, and many municipalities don't recycle those materials at all. So, what customers hear don't always match what they experience. And then there's trust. In 2022, regulators found that the Tim Hortons app illegally tracked users' location, even when the app was closed. That single data privacy scandal undercut years of positive CSR storytelling. So, communication complexity is about credibility. Tim Hortons shows us that one clear campaign can build trust, but one misstep can wipe it out just as fast. So, stepping back, what do these three complexities mean for Tim Hortons going forward? First, on issue complexity, the brand needs to avoid spreading itself too thin. Coffee ethics and packaging waste are the most material issues across markets, and that's where it should focus its energy. Second, on organizational complexity. Pilots in Canada are a good start, but they won't matter if customers in India, Pakistan, or the Gulf see no changes. Tim Hortons needs global rollouts, not patchy ones. And third, on communication complexity. Trust is everything. Smile Cookie shows how simple and transparent communication can win hearts, but the app privacy scandal shows how fast credibility can collapse. So now the big question is, can Tim Hortons move from Canada first CSR pilots to a truly global, standardized, and credible CSR strategy? If they do, they'll not only meet the paper's framework but also strengthen their identity as a global brand and not just a Canadian one. And let's think of this. When you think of Tim Hortons 10 years from now, will it be remembered mainly for coffee and Timbits or as a brand that set a new standard for global CSR?
Now, we are going to talk about some futuristic CSR strategies. for Tim Hortons. When we hear the word corporate social responsibility, it can sometimes sound like just another business word. But in reality, CSR has the power to shape how a company is seen, how it connects with communities, and even how it grows substantially over time. The question is, how can Tim Hortons, a brand that's already iconic in Canada, take CSR to the next level globally? Now we are going to talk about three CSR strategies. Strategy number one, global core and local flexibility. Tim Hortons can define 3 to 4 global CSR ideas like ethical sourcing, climate action, and youth empowerment that reflects its core value. These pillars can become the North Star of the company's CSR everywhere in the world. But here is the problem. While these initiatives remain the same, the programs don't have to look identical. For example, in Canada, a youth hockey or soccer program makes perfect sense because it connects with national culture. But if Tim Hortons expands into, say, India, maybe a school lunch initiative or a educational scholarship would create a stronger impact. This adaptability ensures that CSR programs feel authentic and relevant wherever the brand operates. By balancing global consistency with local flexibility, Tim Hortons can avoid the pitfall and make sure its efforts are actually meaningful. Strategy number two. Now let's look at operational transformation. This strategy is about walking the talk, turning sustainability promises into visible actions across operation. Take packaging as an example. Imagine Tim Hortons testing compostable cups in few Canadian cities. After gathering customers' feedback and measuring environmental impact, they can take this idea into across all locations worldwide. Or for another example, consider coffee sourcing. Using blockchain technology, Tim Hortons could let customers trace their coffee beans all the way back to the farm. With a simple QR code on the cup, a customer in Toronto or Dubai could see exactly where their coffees came from, who grew it, and how it was processed ethically. This level of transparency builds massive trust. It tells customer we are not just saying our coffee is responsibly sourced. We are showing you proof. And the transformation doesn't stop here. AI can optimize energy use in store, reduce food waste, and track carbon emission. So, operational transformation is not just about efficiency, it's about building a responsible business model that can last for decades. The last strategy is authentic communication. Finally, even the best CSR programs won't make an impact if people don't know about them, or worse, if they don't believe in them. That's why authenticity is the key. Think about it. Which one would you trust more? An ad that says we support farmers, or a short video showing an actual farmer whose livelihood improved thanks to Tim Hortons? This strategy is about creating a two-layered communication approach. First, track global key performer indicators like how much waste is reduced, how many farmers are supported, how much carbon footprint is cut globally. These numbers give credibility. Second, use local storytelling, the human side of CSR. Share stories of real people, the farmer in Colombia, the student who got a scholarship, the local community that benefited from a clean water project. Platforms like social media, digital apps, and even in store displays can make these stories visible. Imagine walking into a Tim Hortons and seeing a digital board showing live updates on how much plastic the chain has eliminated globally. That's powerful. That's tough. That's But that's powerful. By combining numbers with stories, Tim Hortons can show impact and not just claim it. So let's bring it all together. These three strategies: global core, local flexibility, operational transformation, and authentic communication offer Tim Hortons a clear roadmap to take CSR from good intentions to real measurable impact. By aligning global values with local needs, transforming operations with technology, and telling authentic stories, Tim Hortons can overcome the cultural, operational, and communication complexities that many global brands struggle with. Ultimately, these strategies help Tim Hortons achieve the three outcomes: stronger brand credibility worldwide, meaningful community engagement, and transparency and trust with stakeholders and customers. With these strategies, Tim Hortons can not only fulfill its social responsibility but also turn CSR into a strategic driver for global brand growth and long term sustainability. Thank you.